edition of the Rider Nation podcast. Maz here, and our guy, two-time Grey Cup champion. He is our quarterback. He's going into the Plaza of Honour, Darian Durant. Ottawa REDBLACKS come to town. A lot of storylines. Riders end up getting the 29-17 win. You and I traded text during the football game. I'm going to pull this up. An ugly win, but it counts. I got to tell you, at times it was not easy to watch.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have those type of games. You know, you have to give Ottawa credit. They're a team that's pretty much playoff bound, and they were looking for a win as well, and they get paid too. So, uh, every win's not going to be pretty. You have to take the good with the bad. At the end of the day, it's all about a W going in that win column and moving into second place with the BC loss and potentially having a home playoff game. So at the end of the season, it's not going to matter how it looked. All that matters is if you got the W or the L, and we'll take the W and move on to Edmonton.
It's funny. A couple of weeks ago, we couldn't buy a win. Now we win, and it wasn't pretty enough. And we got Rider Nation. We're funny. Something to complain about. So coming into the game, the storylines. Jeremiah Masoli's first start in 2 years, back in the place where it all started to go downhill. Garrett Marino hit, all of that. Armstead would be facing the team that released him weeks earlier for discipline reasons after coming off a 207-yard debut in green and white. Let's go back because you have lived through this. You have a season-ending injury, and then you have to come back and play again. What is going through your mind? You made it through warm-up. There's coin toss, but now it's real. What's happening in Darian's mind?
Well, first of all, you have to let all the negative thoughts and the past, you have to let all of that go. You have to be in the moment. You have to realize that this is your job and you have another opportunity to do what you love to do for a living. And you want to make the most of the opportunity. So you can't think about the injury or what happened a couple years ago because, if you keep those things in the back of your head, then usually history repeats itself. So for me, I just wanted to go out there and just try to play well and stay within myself. You can get caught up in the emotions and all the other things that have nothing to do with the game. But, the main thing is just to stay within yourself. And, I've spent some time around Jeremiah in the past, and I know how competitive he can be. And I know this was an emotional time for him. So, you could kind of feel him a little anxious early on and not really, playing within the offense and just trying to be conservative. He was a little bit too aggressive, in my opinion, and you can get caught up in that. So for me, it was just all about just making sure that you stay within the game plan and try not to hurt your team and put your team in bad situations.
I would say that's a fair assessment. At times, it looked like he was, forcing things. You could tell he wanted. The Riders did look in control. Now, for you, did you just want to get the first hit out of the way and then be able to pop back up and be like, okay, it's on. It's time to play football.
Yeah, you always want to get that. Even after, a long off season, you want to get that first hit in the first regular season game. And for him, he's had some reps this year, so he's taken a hit or two. But, it's always difficult going to the place where, you suffered an injury and things seem to spiral downhill for your career from there. So, I think he, just got caught up a little bit, and I'm sure a lot of those throws he wish he had back. Late in the fourth quarter, you could kind of see him get his rhythm a little bit, but it was too late at that point. But at the end of the day, I think that him coming out of that game healthy is a big plus for him. It's a big mental hurdle for him as well. And I think you'll see him play a lot better football and not try to put so much pressure on himself going forward.
He did end up, at the end of the day, 20 for 30 for 210 yards, but he was picked off 3 times by the Rider defense. Corey Mace's scheme against him, it looks like they wanted to bring pressure, but what were you seeing on the back end that almost at times it seemed like it tricked him up because it looked like for a while they would flash that something was open, but just like that, they were able to close and the Rider defense was able to be like, no, we got you. Is that what you saw as well?
Yeah, for sure. Early on in the game, Coach Mace, he showed blitz looks and he blitzed and he made sure that, he put the pressure in the face of Jeremiah and made him make some quick decisions. And in the second half, you can see him show those same blitz looks and then drop guys into coverage. And he kind of confused Jeremiah a little bit. And especially when you're dealing with crowd noise and you have to put your head down and look to receive the ball from the center, you can lose track of where guys go and the disguises that they're trying to do. So Coach Mace did a great job of making sure that he put into Jeremiah's head that, look, I'm going to blitz you. I'm going to make sure these guys hit you to see if you can hang in there. And he switched it up late in the second quarter and in the second half of just dropping guys on the coverage. And, he confused Jeremiah. And, it was difficult to see, especially for me looking at him as a veteran guy, him being fooled a little bit by coverage because, later in your career, some of these looks you've been seeing since the time you were a rookie, right? And to see him being confused and him being a fellow quarterback, regardless of who he's playing, of course I want the Riders to win, but when you see a guy who you can relate to and been through some of the injury things that you've been through, to see him confused, it was tough to watch.
Who was a defensive coordinator for you when you were playing that, like you'd said, you've seen it, you've done it, man, but they got me there. Because there have been some great ones over the years in the CFL. Who was your kryptonite when it came to being a DC?
I would say Mike Benavides and Wally Buono. I think, some of my worst games have come against BC and that defense. And, especially in BC place, I just couldn't seem to play well over there at all. I'm kind of glad in 2013 we had them at home because, I didn't want to go to BC place at all. But he just did a good job of disguising. And, what he did was he had all of his defensive backs sitting at 8 yards, and he would play a multitude of coverages from that same look. And a lot of times I was confused because when you have those veterans like Corey Banks, Ryan Phillips, Dante Marsh, and those guys they've been playing together so long, they did a great job of disguising and making it tough on me. So I would have to say Mike Benavides was definitely one of the toughest defensive coordinators I faced, along with Noel Thorpe. I think that, even what Noel Thorpe is doing in today's game,
Yes.
he always made it difficult on me. And, you can see, every quarterback around the league has trouble against Montreal. I don't know if they've given up a 400-yard passer in the entire time that Noel's been there. So he's done a great job.
The one thing about Noel Thorpe is because as the game has evolved, so has his defense. Like he's stayed employed, he hasn't dropped off, and that's sort of the impressive thing. And I'm sure that with how good Winnipeg is playing these days, and if they've already started, maybe looking down the road and drawing up a game plan, I'd be like, I'd love to know what's going on inside Noel Thorpe's head when he's watching the Bombers right now, who seem to be rolling. We'll get to them in just a little bit. Another one of the storylines, Arquel Armstead, he burst onto the scene in Calgary. He had 207 yards, 25 carries. Well, what were the chances anybody was going to follow up the fourth best debut in Rider Nation history? It just seemed that Baron Miles and that defense, if they were going to do one thing yesterday, they were not going to let him run the ball. And do you think that it was was that scheme or was that pride to be like, no, 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 no. We are not going to let you succeed. I don't care what else we give up, but you, my friend, are not going to get what you think you're going to get.
100% pride. I think whenever you, cut a guy midway through the season and he goes to another team and he has success, the last thing you want to do is let him have success against you. I'm sure I know Coach Dice and Barry Miles personally. I've worked with those guys. I know that they went into meetings during the week and said, look, we will not let him have a good game. We will not make our staff look bad, our GM, our coaches, for the decision that we made to let him go. It will not. You know, I'd rather Trevor Harris throw for 500 yards before we let Raquel Armstead go for 100 yards and a couple touchdowns. So you just can't let that happen. I mean, look, these guys, they have pride. They know the decisions that they make, and they're not going to let a guy they let go beat them and put them in a situation to where they look bad. So you have to understand that, and I think they did a good job of that. And they kept it a low-scoring game by taking away the run and making Trevor throw a ton of passes. I think, a stat we had on Trevor back when we played against him was if you can get him to attempt 30 to 40 passes in that range, he'll complete a ton of balls. But, the thing is, the more you throw the ball, the more opportunities you have at interceptions and sack
Mm-hmm.
fumbles because he's not a mobile guy. So you keep him in the pocket, you let him throw, and then you have an opportunity to make plays with the ball in the air.
So final numbers for Armstead, he had 10 carries for 3.2 yards. Couldn't really get anything going. And then he left the game in the third quarter with an arm injury. And then you saw him on the sideline. He has his arm in his sling. And when the original play was that dive play out of bounds, and he came up holding the top of his hand. And I spotted that. And I had said to Dave and Luke in the booth, I'm like, oh, it looks like Armstead's hurt. Like he was holding his arm, but then it was that, I believe, the next play. And then he came out and he had his arm on the training table and he was knelt down. And I'm like, this isn't good. And then we didn't see him after that. And a shoulder injury at this point of the season, that, we do end up winning the game, but at what cost? Because not only is Armstead out, Sean Bain Jr. with what looked like an incredibly painful knee injury. There's no way I can't see him not having to go on the 6-game injured list.
Yeah.
You got to feel for Sean Bain. He was just starting to put it back together, and it's just a football play,
Yeah.
but some unfortunate luck.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough this part of the season, especially this time of the season. The playoffs are around the corner. And, you want your guys healthy, and you need your guys healthy, especially a receiver like Sean Payton. But you see guys stepping up. I think Keyshawn Johnson has just been just the unsung hero of this receiving core. And hats off to J.O. and his staff of just finding these guys to be able to plug and play. And Coach Mueller of just having a system where you get in the huddle and you simplify things and you make it easy for these guys to come in, after not playing for 10, 12 games and to be able to come in and just get involved in the system and, just be productive. That in itself is impressive. So, kudos to those guys for getting guys ready. But, Raquel Armstead is a huge loss at this part of the season. Look, the Grey Cup is going to go through Winnipeg. We see that. And with that comes windy, cold weather. And you have to bring your sledgehammer, you have to bring your bucket, and you're going to have to run the ball. And having an arm injury, shoulder injury, where you can't fight for those extra yards, and those guys in Winnipeg, they're used to this weather. That pads are going to be popping, and you have to be able to run the ball in the playoffs. So huge loss for the Riders if this is serious. And it's going to be tough to go into Winnipeg and win if you don't have that game going for you.
Here's a quarterback question for you, because we saw it. Kean Schaefer-Baker in the first quarter, with the ball that was thrown and where it was placed, and that's his job. He's in the slot. He's going to get hit. He's going to take some dangers, and he got hit pretty good. He was able to play as a quarterback. I know that you guys are trying to put your receivers in good spots to not get hurt, but if you do end up throwing a guy into a hit like that, like, will you go and say something to be like, hey man, I got you, I'll protect you, like, hey, thanks for taking that for me? Because it looked like he wasn't the same after that. He dropped a couple of, and I don't blame him. The fact that he popped up was like, okay, because I'm like, oh no, we can't lose KSB. That's not good.
Yeah, I think it's a time and a place for when you're super aggressive and going across the middle, and when you need to make sure you protect your guys. And we always, back when I was with Getz and Dress and those guys, we always made it clear. Well, I would always make it clear that early on in the season, I'm going to keep you out of harm's way. I mean, you can call it, being conservative or not being, not trying to win, whatever you want to label it. But, when you're dealing with an 18-game season and then you have playoffs, you have to make sure guys are healthy and you have to keep them healthy. And this is a business as well, right? Guys, livelihoods are on the line. So I would make it a huge deal to not put guys in harm's way early in the season. If we're fighting for, playoff spots or it's a playoff game and things like that, then we would have these talks during the season. And another thing we would do, we would move guys around and, we will put our bigger, more physical, thicker receivers in the slots if we would have a play going across the middle and, you thought would be in harm's way. So, you know what? I'm not sure the relationship that he and Trevor had, but I'm sure Trevor went up to him and told him, my bad. you
Yeah.
know, I, if I could have saved you a little bit or maybe threw it a little lower, let you slide for it, whatever the case may be, I'm sure Trevor would have looked out for him. But, you have to be thoughtful of these things because an injury early in the season could just derail your entire season and it could mess up a guy's career and you don't want to put him in a situation like that.
I think the stars of the game, forget the storylines coming in. The stars were Brett Lothar, who went 7 for 7 in field goals. But that's concerning. We'll get to that in a sec. And Dell
Yeah.
Duncan Busby, who had a breakout game, his CFL debut, catching all seven passes from Trevor Harris for 92 yards. Thomas Bertrand, who Don came into the game for Armstead, he was solid for rushing. He had 50 yards. He ended up scoring his third touchdown. It was late in the game. The defenses played well on both sides. It was bend but not break. Things opened up in the fourth quarter. But the concerning thing coming out of this game for Rider Nation, Trevor Harris, 27 for 36 for 315 yards, but no touchdowns. The field goal thing can be okay if you're ahead, and you always stay ahead. But if Winnipeg, who scores touchdowns, and you're kicking field goal, you eventually have to. And I'm sure that they have the exact same concern that we do, that when we get into the red zone, it's bogging down. When you're watching the game, what's happening inside the 20? Why are we not able to convert?
I just think you don't have that whenever you don't have that run game threat. I think that you know defenses sit back and they sit in zone and they sit in the end zone. The field is shortened, and they make it tough on you. And you know the beauty of having a running back or a run game that you can depend on to get 4, 5, 6 yards is you can dictate coverage. But when you're not in a situation where you're in second and short and you can dictate what the defense is doing. You know they're lining up the box to be aggressive to stop the run. They're not giving Trevor and the receivers that one-on-one opportunity that you would usually have. So I think we talked about this after the Toronto game on the road where Trevor struggled and we couldn't get any touchdowns and it wasn't suitable for the offense. You just become predictable when you're going all the way down the field when you don't have that run game. And defenses see that, and they'll let Trevor Dinkin. We talked about it in the Labor Day Classic as well, when Trevor was taking those short throws all the way down the field, and Richie Hall, he didn't adjust, he didn't do anything differently because his philosophy is we'll give that up all game. You can have all that underneath stuff. You can take those 7 yard ends the entire game. When you get in the end zone or in the red zone area, so to speak, now we'll tighten up a little bit and make you make some tight throws. And I think you're seeing a lot of other teams take that same approach to the Rider offense and just giving Trevor those underneath throws and tightening up once you get close to the end zone.
Well, I think not only valid point when you talk about the run game, but with Trevor, and it's not that he can't run, but that's not like number 1, 2, or 3 in his arsenal. Now, a lot of quarterbacks, including yourself, they had to worry about you because you might take 2 steps back and then take off. And whether or not you were scoring or not, you were at least going to put the pressure going forward on the defense that they would have to think about it. Much like you had mentioned, if Mace was blitzing in the first and second quarters, but then showing in the third and fourth, the fear was there. And I get it. The chances, I don't think Trevor is running from the 20. I don't think that he's beating anybody from the 20. And once again, if it's advantage defense to be okay, that's one less thing we got to worry about.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that, when you don't have to worry about a quarterback running or your RPO game where he can pull and get outside of the defense and put some pressure on the defense on the perimeter, you become, it's easy to predict what you're trying to do. And, that's another thing that defenses really don't have to worry about. And like I said, that's a part of, the predictability when you get around the end zone area is he's not going to run. And you can just focus on a couple areas that he likes to attack and take that away. And then you force field goals.
But on the flip side, I was surprised that they didn't try and run Masoli more outside of the edges because the Riders all season long have not been good. If you can get past that front four contain and you can run to the edges, and Masoli can do that, it just made him more effective. Now we saw flashes of that in the fourth quarter, but it was almost too late. If you're drawing up those offensive plays for him, would you have not tried to use his legs a little more?
Maybe so, but I think this was kind of a feeling out process for Tommy Condell as well. It's been a while since Jeremiah's played a full game. You want to make sure that he can come out of this game healthy. Because look, Ottawa has a playoff berth, coming itself. They have to be ready to fight with Montreal and Toronto and even Hamilton the way they're playing
I
right now.
know.
So, you have to make sure that you have your quarterbacks healthy. You never know what the game may call for, and it's situational, right? So for Ottawa, I don't think it was as desperate. uh, they were as desperate as Saskatchewan for this win, so they just wanted to come out of this game healthy. And I think that, as the game went on, Jeremiah was able to get his feet under him a little bit and get into a rhythm you could see in that fourth quarter. And now, moving forward, you can feel more comfortable after, he got a full game under his belt. You can feel more comfortable with opening up the playbook a little bit and getting him on the edge and having him throw on the run, which is something he does very well.
I think the TSN turning point, what was it, a 3 or 4 point game when he hit the open receiver in the end zone, and the young guy, I can't remember who, dropped the ball and just quickly ran off the field. And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
to me, if they score a touchdown there, it brings it close. And I was like, oh no, we don't need to get into one of these greasy 1 or 2 point either way games where it could be a crazy play again
yeah.
that dictates it all. It seemed that once that drop happened, the wind kind of came out of the sails, and the Riders, they seemed in control the whole game. They just seemed from start to finish, they were able to, with defense, there was just enough offense leading to field goals, and then the turnovers. And once again, with the 3 picks, we got a couple of sacks. We looked like we were in control the whole game, and it didn't seem that threatening. Now, the one thing that I was worried about going into the game, and I loved him. I would love to see him in a Rider jersey. As a guy like a Dominic Rhymes, he is, when you get him the way, remember when BC would get him going, and then you
Yeah.
get him going early, he's unstoppable. To me, I think the Riders are missing that dominant receiver that can take over, like a Reggie Bagleton in Calgary. When he's on, the other 11 guys can be off because he's
Yeah.
like a Keon Hatcher. They can take over a game, and I think we were very fortunate that Rhymes wasn't a factor. I think he only maybe caught a couple of balls, and it wasn't until the fourth quarter.
Yeah, yeah. It took him a while to get going, and it just took Jeremiah a while to find him. And like I said, I think Coach Mace did a great job of just disguising coverages and making it tough, and mixing the blitz with the zone and knowing when to back off and knowing when to be aggressive. When your quarterback is confused and he doesn't, have you can't really predict about where to go with the ball pre-snap, then it's hard to get your big time weapons the ball and get it to them in situations where they can be themselves. So, but like I said, I think Coach Pondell, he'll look at this film. This will be a great learning experience for him. This is really his first time calling a full game for Jeremiah. You have to, I'm sure the game plan is different from Drew Brown to Masoli each and every week. So it's good to kind of get a feel for your guys, and now he knows how to approach, moving forward with Jeremiah. And I think you'll for sure see, those guys spread the ball out. And Jalen Ackland is another receiver I love for Ottawa that I think, when he gets back into the mix, he can really help that offense.
Yeah. So with the win, the Riders are 7-7-1, currently sitting in second spot. It's funny, the Eskimo Bomber game was over within the first 6 minutes. Or
Elk,
pardon
elk.
me, the Elk game. Sorry. Yeah, it's funny. I was on the sports cage this past week, and then one of the guys working with, he goes, "Do you know you said Eskimos 3 times in about 5 minutes?" I'm like, "Okay, sorry." The
Yeah.
Edmonton Elk, Winnipeg, what they got up 10-0. I'm like, there's no way that Edmonton is coming back. They are what Montreal started doing last year. They are peaking at the right time. Is there any deficiencies you're seeing in the Winnipeg Blue Bombers these days?
No, not at all. They're healthy, or they're getting back healthy, and I think that's the main thing. And they're running the ball, man. Whenever you can run the ball and protect a guy like Zach Collaros and your play action is there, you know, you stated Dominic Rhymes as far as having that just go getter in your offense. And I look at Kenny Lawler the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he is just a beast. There's nothing he can't do. Deep ball underneath, going across the middle. He is your just a receiver without any weaknesses, in my opinion. And you add him with Oliveira running the ball and that defense playing the way they're playing. They have no weaknesses right now. They're getting hot at the right time, and kudos to them for just being a veteran team and not panicking when you're losing. You have a losing streak. My Grey Cup year in 2013, we lost five in a row, and if we didn't have guys like myself, John Chick, G. Roy Simon, guys who've been through these situations, then you'll panic. And so with them, just being such a veteran team and understanding that it's a long season and you can control your own destiny, just kudos to those guys for just not quitting and knowing that we have every opportunity to control our own destiny and make it happen for ourselves. And they're hot right now, man. They're just doing everything well. And the main
Hmm.
thing, like I said, they're running the ball. And they know that, in order to get to the Grey Cup, you have to come to Winnipeg. And it's going to be a cold, windy day. And they're going to lean on that run game and that play action. And if you don't have a run game to keep their offense off the field, you're in for a long day.
Well, the one thing, yeah, they're running the ball, but they're running it at will when they want to. Like it's not like
Yeah.
okay, and then we go wait. It's like when they want it and they need it. That, and I think that is the big factor. And I think that we saw. I think Edmonton made a huge mistake when they didn't start McLeod Bethel Thompson in that first game over Trey Ford. That when they had a chance to win at home, and I knew going into Edmonton, I'm like, if they don't keep it close, the game is going to be over early. And then the second game, the BC Lions were up on the Hamilton Ticats early, and it was halftime. And what was it, 16, 17, nothing? I'm like, well, it was late. I'm like, well, this game's over. I'm going to go to bed. You wake up the next morning, and I'm scrolling Twitter, and I'm like, what? Hamilton
Yeah.
won?
Yeah.
This Bo Levi Mitchell story, and as a quarterback who's had to live through some ups and downs and seen some bench and seen some luster come off the star, how happy are you for Bo just on a quarterback level to be like, oh, really? You're going to bench me? Watch this. I'm going to be the most outstanding player when I come back
Yeah,
in, and
man.
you don't even want me.
Yeah, you gotta love to see it, yeah. Especially for both. When you look at Calgary and their struggles of them being last in the division, and here you are playing some of the best football of your life. Um, you know, I'm just happy for them because a lot of times you get written off as an older quarterback, and you get caught up in the new toy, like they say, the backup quarterback's the most popular guy in a lot of these cities. And when he
The
comes
new
in and he
shiny thing.
plays well, exactly. And if he plays well for a few games, you just feel like you can get rid of that guy who was a multiple Grey Cup champion, multiple time MOP. I mean, you just can't do that. It's hard to replace guys. And I think Calgary's seeing that. And for Bo, I've been in this offense that he's in with Scott Milanovich, and it just takes time to pick up. It takes time to understand. And for Scott, you have to, find out what Bo does well and how to, evolve that offense around him as well. So I think that, you're just finding a feel out. There's a feel out process that goes on. And Scott's done a great job. He's worked with Ricky Ray, Anthony Calvillo, and now Bo Levi Mitchell, all Hall of Famers. You know, he's used to veteran guys, and it takes time. And you see, Bo playing some of the best football of his career right now, and I'm just so happy for him.
And love him or hate him, and he is the man in black. He is the Johnny Cash of the CFL. Hamilton's defense has got better since Chris Jones got there. What? Okay, but what is he doing? What changed from I don't even know who it was. Was it Mark Washington? Or what
Yeah.
changed to Chris? What is Chris Jones doing now that they weren't doing earlier in the season?
Look, Chris Jones, one thing about his defense is they're going to be aggressive. And when you're aggressive, you're going to get some stops. You're going to get a lot of stops. And what happens with that is you give your offense a chance to get on the field and make plays. And I think with Mark Washington coming from, he's under that Baron Miles and, Mark Benavides. These guys have worked together and played together. You have more of we sit in off coverage and we allow you to dink and dunk and complete passes and go up and down the field, but we just don't allow you to score touchdowns. And when you have an aggressive guy like Chris Jones, you're going to get stops. You're going to get more turnovers, and you have an opportunity for guys to play freely because he doesn't do a lot of things that are complicated. His defensive calls are one or two words. So he allows his guys to go out there and just play without thinking. And most of these guys, when they come to the CFL, you're worried about the big field. You're thinking you have all of these other things going through your head. And what playing in Chris Jones's defense allows you to do is just do what you did in college. You come up, you play press man, and you make a guy beat you in one-on-one coverage, and that's what you've been doing your whole life, right? So it makes it so much easier. You play just so much freer in a Chris Jones defense, and when you get stops and you continuously give Bo Levi the ball, the offense is going to make plays. And then when you make plays offensively, the opposing offense now becomes one dimensional. And what Chris Jones wants you to do is throw the ball. Throw the ball each and every play. You play from behind. That's when he's going to blitz you and put pressure on you. And one thing I can say about Chris Jones, and we've had our back and forths, and I don't like him. He doesn't like me. You name it.
No,
But at
this
the
is
end of the day,
this is the first I'm hearing of this, Darian. This is like almost like you and Bomber fans. What?
yeah.
There's bad blood there. Oh man, did you melt down the internet a few weeks ago with that interview? Oh.
But look, I've always given him his respect as a defensive coach. I don't think that he has a lot more work to do as a GM or as a head coach. But what he's always been able to do is call defenses and put guys in the right places to make plays, and you see it happening at Hamilton as well.
So this week in the CFL, you have this should be a good game, and I'm rooting for the Ticats because the Bombers are going to Hamilton. Now, keep in mind, if Hamilton wins, like there's crossovers, they're still not out of it technically, but they're far behind. But I think if Hamilton can beat Winnipeg, this just makes this party all that much more interesting because, okay, but here, the reason, selfishly, the reason why, if Edmonton or if Winnipeg is going to be beat, somebody's got to figure out how to do it right now. And maybe it is Hamilton, and maybe there is something there. Maybe there's a weakness that could be exposed that we could potentially, like I said, if this is going through Winnipeg and we want to get to where we want to go, we're going to have to beat them. And it may mean seeing or doing something that maybe we haven't done or aren't willing to do yet.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I love this time of year, especially when the standings are tight like this, and each and every game means so much. Every team is playing for their playoff life, and this is what football is all about. This is what football in October and November is all about. So, I would love for Hamilton to put a nice beating on Winnipeg, and we go to Edmonton and handle our business. But I'm a firm believer in you do what you need to do and control what you can control. So I think this is a huge game in Edmonton. You know, Leroy Simon and Darius Jackson and that staff, they're fighting for their coaching and GM careers as well. So this is a huge game. They're at home. I think you're going to see well over 30,000 fans in
Mm-hmm.
Edmonton, which has been, a rare occasion. And it's hard to say that with the rich tradition of the Edmonton Football Club, but this is going to be a hell of an environment, and you have to control what you can control.
Well,
This is
and
going to be
it,
a tough game for the Riders.
and admittedly, we haven't played just as long before you, long before about the Riders have a history of not playing well in Edmonton. Like there's been a few
Yeah,
games, but if we're looking at the numbers, it's not in our favor. I'm a little worried that this could be a bit of a trap game. I'm because you don't know what quarterback they're going to start if Trey Ford does play and they start attacking the edges. That's not our strength. If they have that triple run game going, Geno Lewis, you've got all of these factors. So I'm a little worried. And the other thing that the BC Lions will play the Calgary Stampeders this week. There is only 3 games. Now, on paper, the Lions should beat the Stamps. Um, and you never know. And did Calgary do us a favor? I still think that their season is over. But also, if BC goes and, gets their business handled, like, we still have to win. Like, we can't. Fairholm said this last week on the Rider Nation pod. He was mad too. We cannot be backdooring our way into the playoffs, and I don't want
yeah,
anybody talking about that. You got to win and go in the front door. You can't depend on other
absolutely,
people losing. He
absolutely.
was
I love that.
he was
I
fired
love
up.
that, and I just said the same thing. Like, don't worry about what these other teams are doing or who they play. You control your own destiny. You have an opportunity to go to Edmonton and basically put a fork in them and make sure their season is over. You can do that, and you can control your own destiny and make sure you solidify a home playoff game. You can do it, especially with BC coming in next week, coming into Mosaic. You have the perfect setup. There's a perfect opportunity for you to, you know, even with the losing streak, to be sitting with a chance for a home playoff game is amazing. And you would love for Winnipeg to go on a slide and maybe open up the West, and you could potentially move into first place. But you can't worry about that. You're sitting in second place right now. You have an opportunity to go to Edmonton and play against a team that's going through so much. They don't know who the quarterback is. You don't know this. There's no security in the front office. The staff doesn't have much security. So, you have an opportunity to not only beat them and secure your spot, but you have an opportunity to turn that organization, down from, the wins that they picked up after the Chris Jones firing. So there's a lot of dominoes that could fall with going and beating this Edmonton team, and you can make things tough on them for not only this year but for years to come. Whenever you can put yourself in a position, and you hate to talk about coaches getting fired because, like I said, I talk about the livelihood of guys a lot because this is how we feed our family. But you can set a team back for years and make it easier for you in your life going forward if you can have staff turnover and
Uh-huh.
make guys
Cause some
new
chaos.
situation.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you can do that, then it makes it easier on you and the things that you can accomplish in your career. So uh, a lot can happen if you go in and get this game. And I wouldn't look at it as a trap game. I think the Riders know exactly what's at stake, and they know what Edmonton's fighting for, and they'll be awake and making sure that they're ready to go this week.
Yeah, my big thing is it's the walking wounded. Before the game, we were on the sports cage this past week on 620 CKRM. I counted there was 17 players on the 6 game injured list, and we're going to probably add a few more. That's my
Yeah,
biggest fear is
yeah,
when you're getting that so far down into your depth chart, you're coming on to guys that they just don't have the experience. And Edmonton being relatively healthy, and it's funny you mentioned that. So Trey Ford will be a free agent in the offseason. There's no guarantee that he's coming back to Edmonton with what he's been through over the past 3 years. So, yeah, there is all of that. You mentioned the BC game on the 12th, and we'll wrap on this. You are coming back to Regina. You were gracious enough to be there on Labor Day. We did dinner with doubles, which, by the way, we raised just under $10,000 for the Saskatchewan Roughrider Foundation. The final numbers
amazing.
are
Thank
in
you.
honor of Jim Hobson. No, thank you, sir, for my crazy idea on a phone call one day in March when it was freezing cold and snowing in Regina to be like, hey, I got this idea if you want to do this. Yeah, so that's awesome. So thank you to Cindy. Thank you to all of our partners that put on that event. Next year, bigger and better. We're already working on plans.
Absolutely.
But October the 12th, so that weekend, you will be inducted into the Saskatchewan Roughrider Plaza of Honour. Your whole family will be there. Now that it's a few weeks away, the nerves starting to kick in, the butterflies. You starting to think about this a little more because now
Yeah.
well, a lot of us think you're immortal as it is, but you will be officially in to never be out. Saskatchewan Roughrider history. I know we're a couple weeks away, but what's that feeling right now?
Yeah, I'm getting a little nervous. To be 100% honest with you. It's finally starting to hit me. Just finalized my travel plans and, just going over everything with the staff, with the rider staff. And, it's real. It's here. And, I'm really looking forward to it because, as a player, times are different a little bit now. The team doesn't get to go to the induction, but when I was a player, we were able to go to the induction. We were able to just soak up, the past, the alumni, the guys who meant so much to the Rider organization. So, with me going as a guest and now being inducted, I understand what it really means now. I understand that it's hard to get into that situation and to be a part of this Rough Rider hierarchy or one of the greats in Rough Rider history. So I just love to just enjoy the moment. I would love to. I know it's not going to be easy, but I've been thinking about my speeches. I've been thinking about the people that I need to thank along the way. So it's a lot that comes with it. Thinking about what I'm wearing and
Nice.
where I'm sitting, it's a lot. It's a lot to it, man. So,
Well,
you know,
I can assume you're going to be sitting near the front of whatever, wherever you are. And I'm assuming that you won't be the last person to get up to go eat the
oh yeah,
buffet dinner. That I know. Just a
yeah.
quick question on a personal level. How much time have you blocked out for Luke Mullen during your speech? Are we going to, are you giving him two? Is it going to be like 12 minutes on Mullender? Like
No,
where does he fall in all of this?
no,
Being
my
a
guy.
partner in crime.
Yeah, that's my guy, man. He knows that he's a huge reason why I even stayed around. I had some turmoil earlier in my career as well. When I felt like I should be playing and I wasn't playing or wasn't active. So a lot of the reason why I stayed and I was able to even just continue to be around is because of Luke. So he'll definitely have a little segment there.
Nice.
He knows he's my guy. There's just so many people responsible for my success, and
Well,
I
that's got
can't
to be
wait.
hard because when you're up there, immediately when you sit down, you may go, "Oh, and I forgot to mention this person and that person," and that's probably got to be the tough part when you're putting this all together. And there's
Yeah,
too many to thank. I think for a lot of us Rider fans, we're just incredibly proud and getting to know you a little bit in these past few months. And I would say we're kind of friends, which
yeah,
is kind of
yeah, for sure, for sure.
which is kind of cool. And I think a lot of people to see this just to be like, there was Darian, there's Darian the Grey Cup champion, there's Darian the Plaza of Honor, and try believe you me, buddy, because it's funny. I texted you that I texted you that picture on the wall by the private suites. I'm like, hey, look at that guy. No shortage of Durant jerseys walking around the stadium yesterday
Amazing,
at Mosaic.
amazing, man.
So
I'm so thankful for my turn, for sure.
hopefully we'll get a chance to do this again on the Rider Nation podcast. I love just hearing how you break down the game. If you want to catch Darian, he's on the radio every Monday, just after 5 on the all-new Sports Cage on 620 CKRM, or you can stream it at sportscage.com. He's our quarterback, and we're happy to have him, and we're trying to work with his agent to get him locked into a long-term deal. We don't share our guy with anybody else. Thanks, my friend.
Thank you.